Welcome to Ignite the CEO Within, the podcast where we dive deep into the minds of top business leaders to ignite your inner CEO. I'm your host, Mark McFatridge, founder of Quaid, and with each episode, we bring you inspiring conversations with CEOs and business owners who share their experiences, insights, and lessons learned along the way. Get ready to be motivated, empowered, and equipped with the tools you need to succeed in your own leadership journey. Let's ignite the CEO within you. Here we go. I'm excited to kick off another episode of Igniting the CEO Within. I'm Mark McFatridge, founder and CEO of Quaid, and I'm going to be your host for the next 30 minutes or so. We'll see where this thing goes. Excited as always to bring on CEOs that have different experiences and different journeys and that type of thing. One of the things that's been really cool for me as we put Quaid together and it continues to grow and expand and add new members and so forth is there's a common trait that I've been able to see, and that's their commitment to ethical leadership. And that's really one of the only requirements for CEOs to join Quaid. We don't have revenue minimums. We don't have employee minimums, whatever is, it's basically, are you a CEO? Are you a business owner? Are you an entrepreneur? And that type of thing. But my real only rule is, and I usually frame it as no assholes, but it's been really refreshing to routinely hear phrases from our allies like integrity, honesty, fairness, compassion. And we hear those all the time during our circle roundtables. Then we get to see them all carried out in daily action. So anyway, that's been really refreshing, really cool to see, and something I'm really proud of the people that we get to hang out with. And today I get to hang out with another one of those folks. So Brad Banfill is going to join us here on Igniting the CEO Within. Excited to get his thoughts and views on ethical leadership and how he emphasizes it in his leadership of the company he founded a little over 5 years ago, BSE. So Brad, welcome to Igniting the CEO Within.
Thanks, Mark. Good to see you.
You too. One of the cool things, and I didn't know this until I was preparing for this episode, but BSE actually stands for Breathe Safe and Easy, which to me makes a commitment right from the jump of this ethical leadership stuff. So your company is a master distributor for Purex fume extraction equipment, and we're going to learn a little bit more about the company as we dig into your journey to entrepreneurship. So congratulations on putting it out there right up front, but share with us your journey to becoming an entrepreneur and a CEO, and because you're right at a little over 5 years now, right?
Yeah, it's just 5 years in January 2020. So
wow,
yeah,
that's awesome. How'd you get there?
So I mean, I'll say, kind of backing up, I've always kind of had in my blood that I wanted at some point to kind of do my own thing, have my own thing, and just was getting later in life, wasn't sure I'd ever have that opportunity, but basically worked through several organizations that gave me opportunities for different training, different mentorships, that type of thing, and put me in leadership roles, which kind of got the juices flowing. And finally, I met up with Purex and hired onto Purex. They had a organization that they'd set up here in the U.S. They're actually a UK company. Worked with them for about 4 years, heading up their sales organization and trying to build the U.S. for them, and built a really good relationship with the owner, Andy Easy of Purex. And we decided, that we wanted to partner in some way, shape, or form. And it just worked out well to form BSE to become their master distributor and kind of be partners that way, giving us exclusive rights to sell in the Americas, really. So it's been a fun experience getting that going.
Yeah, that's awesome. So go back. I mean, you talked about you always had in the back of your head that you wanted to start something on your own. I think one of the things that we share in commonality is we both started our entrepreneurial journey a little bit later in our careers. And the other thing that you touched on was you kind of grew up in different companies, and typically larger companies, if I believe. And one of the things that I've always said is, because I did the same thing in banking, I started out with really large regional banks, and there are some cool things about that, right? And you mentioned training. access to tools. You get to see really unique, larger deals and kind of learn from them. And that's awesome. And I would not trade that for the world. But at the same time, you also deal with bureaucracy and different things that come along with working for large companies. And so, one of the cool things for me is when I moved to my first CEO role outside of that, and for a privately held bank, it was a much smaller bank, that I was able to utilize a lot of those learnings and those trainings and so forth, and bring kind of that larger bank mentality down to the smaller bank, and we kind of raised up the way we did business and how we operated and all that kind of stuff. And then again, used all those learnings. So, I mean, from my standpoint, I would never trade the big bank or the big company background, because it provided me so much insights and whatever, and experiences.
Completely agree. I mean, I kind of went through that curve almost in my career. At the beginning, it's like, oh, I need to work for a big company. That's where the benefits are at. That's where you're going to get, stability and all that. And I went through that, and I started out with a very large privately owned company that then sold to a large corporation. And that's where I began to see that, you go from that hand-holding, being a part of the family, even though it was a big organization, to being a number. And you're just right out there in the masses. And next thing you know, it's, well, we can't give you more money because you're in this level here and you fit this criteria. So we have to stay in these boxes. And so then as I moved on, I quickly then shifted to going to a slightly smaller company, and then another smaller company. And I was like, man, I can actually negotiate. We can talk. We actually are paying attention to what I'm doing and what value I'm bringing, instead of what box I fit into in the corporate world. And, and that's where you kind of, like you said, I wouldn't trade the corporate part because of the resources and kind of the background it's given me. But at the same time, I also was like, all right, well, smaller is better for me. And you know what? I kind of like making my own decisions. And I kind of like that if I want to take a risk, I just don't do it. I don't have to go ask for approval. I don't have to do anything. Now, I might, bankrupt myself one day because I make stupid decision. But, beyond that, I mean, that's the biggest risk that I run, letting myself make decisions.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We had that same thought process of, it's stable, it's all this kind of stuff. And then we just chucked that out the window and said, the hell with it, I'm going to go out on my own. Right.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
And so if you go back 5 years, January 20 of 2020, I mean, you launch this thing, and then all of a sudden the world goes to hell in a handbasket. Like, what was that like to be in a startup and all that?
So, I mean, at first, I've signed the paperwork, I'm done. And I just have talked myself off the ledge of, this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. I can't believe I put my entire life at risk. And, I started breathing almost normally. And then I wake up one morning to find out that the world has been put on hold. So then I went back in the corner, went back in the fetal position, and sucked my thumb for a while. So that's kind of how that worked out. But then, after I woke up from that and the logical part of my brain kicked in, it's all right, well, what are we going to do here? And, I went out and found some other products that beyond Purex that were more matched to the situation of general air cleaning. So, added products like air scrubbers with HEPA filters, ionization, which, now have replaced with hydroxyl radicals, which that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, so I just went and found other products. And while the Purex, which lends itself more to commercial light industrial products, tended to fall down that first year in 2020, I was still able to grow BSE by 10% by adding those other products into there. So, so just kind of pivoted like a lot of people did during that time. Hey, I got to put food on the table. I've got all these people that are relying on me for jobs. So, there was a lot of times that maybe sleep was, not really an option because I just couldn't, things of that nature. But I think that was my bigger thing is it wasn't even about putting food on my own table. It's now I have these other people relying on me to put food on their table. And if I don't make this work, they're all putting faith in me that I can just carry this on and keep them going, that's where the stress came from for me.
I'm glad you brought that up. All right. I say it as often as I possibly can that I do believe that owning a business, that being the CEO is one of the toughest roles that you will ever have. And I say that because of what you just talked about, that, people look at it and they're like, oh my God, you own your own business. That means you get to earn whatever you want. You can go on whatever vacations you want. You work whatever hours you want and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, no, that is the opposite of what actually happened, right? Like, and those stressors, like nobody knows that. Nobody gets that if they've never done it. That waking up at 3:00 anymore for me, and I'm sure it is for you, is just part of life, right? Like I know I'm never going to sleep through the night, and I'm going to wake up and I've got a pad next to my, on my nightstand, and I write the stupid shit down that I think of that I don't think of during the normal hours. But that feeling of I'm no longer just in charge of my own family. I'm in charge of my employees' families. I'm in charge of the vendors' families. I'm in charge of my customers' families. Like every decision I make has ramifications beyond me. And I get why people don't want to do it, but there's something crazy about us that was like, yeah, that sucks, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, we're just gonna make it happen. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you deal with that? Like, I mean, you were kind of in those roles before leading up to it, but if I remember your bio, you didn't lead companies as CEOs, so you kind of not only went into an entrepreneur, but it's kind of your first time of leading people too. Were you prepared for that mentally?
Yeah, I mean the leading people. I've been in leadership roles, maybe not at the executive level, but I've always been in leadership roles throughout my career. So that part of it, the mentoring, the coaching, that type of thing has always been something that's driven me. So that part kind of, I guess, is natural, I'll say. But taking it to that next level is the part of, sure, I always told myself that's what I wanted to do. But then it comes time, hey, it's game time. Are you really ready for this? Are you putting the right shoes on? Because maybe you should be playing pickleball instead of tennis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was definitely something that was difficult. And that was part of the grasping of, should we really do this, and talking to my wife and trying to, she encouraged me that, yeah, let's just do it. But those were a lot of the things holding me back. Then you add into the fact that, trying to get financing for a new company is pretty much no. The bank says, oh, well, I'll be happy to fund you after you've been in business for 2 years. And then you're like, well, how do I get in business for 2 years if I don't get funding? So luckily, Purex self-funded it. But, through that whole time, I'm working without a line of credit, for the first year and a half. I mean, I was able to convince a bank after my first full year in business to get me a line of credit. But up till then, you got that stress of like, oh, crap, I just bought in a bunch of inventory. Oh, there's that, freaking cash flow. How am I going to pay for that? Because sales dipped right after I placed that order. It's things like that. That's when you're like, I'm up in the night, building imaginary spreadsheets of what if. And some of those spreadsheets make me fine and go back to sleep. Other of those spreadsheets, I just go into a cycle and, just spin out like, oh my God, that could happen, And how am I going to make payroll,
Right. So all that stuff, I don't know your family background, but did you have people that you could lean on, or who did you lean on during some of those times to get that? Because there's no CEO manual, right? Like it's like, go get him, Tiger, right? Like
I did a lot of leaning my forehead on my desk. Luckily, my boss from 2 jobs ago, he had always been part of a peer group, right? So I had reached out to him to just kind of have coffee and talk. And while we were talking, I said, hey, tell me more about this experience, whatever. And at the time, his peer group had an opening. And so that was where I had my first introduction to peer group work. That's where I found those people to cry on, hug, and pat each other on the back to be able to get through some of that stuff. So that helped out. But again, that was a year into it. So that first year was a lot of just, I had Andy, who I bought the company from. Yeah, he was gracious enough to, keep saying, look, you just tell me if we need to change some of our terms or whatever. And let's, especially with the COVID stuff happening, like he was very gracious with that. My wife was very supportive that even when I'd call her bawling my eyes out and, talking me through that, she's like, no, that's not going to happen. You got this.
Yeah. I think that's another, I don't know, it'd be interesting. I'm sure there are studies out there, but that, one of the key traits of an entrepreneur and a business owner, CEO, is that they just look at it and they figure out a way, right? And I actually posted I called it a mini rant on LinkedIn a few days ago on, in these troubled times, I'm like, whatever, man. Like, there's always trouble, right? You just have to figure it out. And I think one of the cool things that you are already documented, but a lot of people did during COVID, was they just had to figure out a way to survive, and they found opportunities in chaos, and those things get there. And I mean, I don't know, like, again, I don't think there's certainly not a manual for a global pandemic and how you operate, but where did that come from? And was that, you seem like you're a resilient guy and you've always just figured shit out, but where did that come from?
I mean, and part of it, I think, is just growing up, right? I mean, my dad was always kind of a, fix it yourself type of guy, and, taught me how to do hands-on work and that type of thing. And he was always the one that, he'd come up with something that when you looked at it, you'd be like, well, who the hell put that together? But it did the job, right? So, whether it be trying to replace a door hinge with baling twine and duct tape or whatever. And then, eventually he got tired of the corporate world, created and started his own company when he was 50. Wasn't anything major, but it was enough for him and my mom to make a living on. So that was a lot of it, just kind of learning that, well, you just figure stuff out. If you don't have tools, you make a tool. And I think that's part of where it all came from. And out of that just came like my mentality of, I'm confident enough, I'll figure something out.
I think it's an incredible trait that we all have of, we just got to get shit done, right? Like, whatever it is, we just got to get shit done, and let's do it the right way. Let's handle it the right way. Let's treat people the right way. All those kinds of things. And I think that leads into kind of our topic of the day, and going back to the opening of, I didn't know what BSE stood for, but I love that breathe, safe, and easy. And to me, you literally just put a stake in the ground right from the start when somebody understands that you are focused on doing things the right way. So first question is, who came up with that? Because it wasn't you.
Well, I'll be honest with you. So the BSE originally started with, my first two initials are BS. So I always said, if I'm going to have a company, BS is going to be in there somewhere. So BSE, I had to come up with a company. I created BSE to be able to buy out Purex. And then my brain then was like, well, nobody's going to know what this is for. But this makes no sense. So then I was just sitting around drinking a beer one night, and I'm like, well, I say, what do I sell? Whatever. And I was like, breathe, safe, and easy. Hey, there we go. That's it. That's what BSE now is. It's breathe, safe, and easy.
We'll dive back into the conversation in just a moment. But first, a quick word from one of our strategic partners, Ice Miller. For more than a century, Ice Miller has helped clients navigate the full range of legal and business issues they face. Whether it be in the boardroom or the courtroom, our lawyers have evolved with the marketplace, providing sound counsel when you need it the most. Though our Midwest roots run deep, we serve clients from coast to coast and bring to bear international capabilities and insights. As a cohesive team, Ice Miller stands ready to provide cutting-edge legal solutions tailored to you. Learn more at icemiller.com. So again, and now capitalizing on that, right? Like, that really makes a statement for your teammates, your employees, your customers, prospective teammates, for whatever, that, like, who you are and what to expect from you as a leader, and more importantly, what will be expected of them. So, I think that's a pretty cool deal to capitalize on, so that, you're really setting the groundwork up front for anybody that's going to join you on this journey, either as a teammate or a customer.
Yeah. And it does. It kind of plays into not only the products that we sell, right, are for clean air, but it's kind of my style, right? My style is just get shit done. We don't have to be stressful. We don't have to. I'm not big onto the reports. I'm not big into structure. I just want shit to get done, and let's make people happy when we do it. That's all that matters. We do those things. Everything else takes care of itself.
And we do it the right way, right? For the right reasons and in the right way. So I love that, by the way. And how do you bring those expectations throughout the entire organization? Like, what, I know, you're not necessarily having all these reports and everything, but how do you make people aware that that's the expectation if you're going to work for BSE?
I think it's just my daily communication. So whether it be that I'm talking to sales guys, people, downstairs, working in the warehouse, order entry, our distributors, whatever, right? I mean, so my mantra that I always repeat is relationships over transactions. So no matter what, we're not in business for transactions. We're in business to grow relationships. And I tell my sales guys, I'm not going to turn down the money from a transactional customer. If you bring me a giant OEM that wants to give me a lot of money and they're all about the cost, I'll take it, but I'm not going to hire people for it. I'm not going to do anything to support that, because those are the same people that tomorrow could call and say, or not call, and just go somewhere else. Where when we build the company and our customer base on relationships, those are the people that call and cry on your shoulder and say, hey, I'm having a hard time. Can you help me out? Or I call and cry on their shoulder and I say, I'm having a hard time. Help me out. Or, hey, we're $1,000 for meeting our bonus this month for the inside guys. You got anything you can give me? I mean, those are the give and takes of those relationships that we have. And when you do that, that business doesn't go away. I mean, those people are there. You've got each other's back. And you're trying to legitimately build each other's businesses together. And that's when it's just a machine at that point, right? I mean, you take everything out of it. You don't even have to think about it. It's going to take care of itself. I mean, sure, you have to still maintain the business and do the day-to-day. But from an overall perspective, you do the right things, it all pays back in the end.
1,000%. Is that a differentiator in your industry, in your business? Like,
I mean, I don't want this to get out, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our biggest competitor, right, was bought out by a giant corporation. When they were kicking our butts, they had somebody running the U.S. who was doing what I do. They were going and they were building relationships. And whenever I go to those customers and I try and get in the door, it would be, oh, no, we got a pretty good relationship with this guy. We don't need to talk to you. So the minute that started to shift and he started to get frustrated and then eventually left, those doors all opened. And now what we're seeing is the complete opposite. Now they're telling our competitors, hey, we're good. You don't need to call us anymore. We're good. And it basically seals up once you're in. If you can have that relationship, it seals the door. And as long as you continue to take care of that relationship, you can keep that business going as long as you take care of that. That's my feeling and my philosophy. And again, you can ask anybody in my company, those words come up constantly. I don't want transactions. I want relationships. Obviously, at the end of the month, I'm always like, hey, what do you got to do? What are we going to bring in the door? But on this overall scale of everything, it's, what are you doing to build relationships? And don't forget that and go get some more of those types of relationships.
I love that. And to me, our topic is ethical leadership. I mean, to me, that's it, right? If you're building relationships, you're doing the right thing for the right reasons. And people respect that and love that. Have you ever had opportunities or folks that that were on your team that didn't live up to that, and they were trying to do the quick deals and that type of stuff?
Honestly, since the inception of BSE, I'm a lucky SOB. I mean, I've got a great team that all kind of has that same feeling. And I've brought a couple people from competitors, and it took them a little bit to get comfortable with the fact that, they'd come to me and ask to, whether it be for a demo for a customer or whatever, and knowing where they came from, that it was like pulling teeth to get things done, or like a customer has a wheel fall off a machine and shipping, whatever. I'm like, just send them a wheel. I mean, like, let's just get them using their machine and get them happy. It's no skin off my back for a $10 part, to get somebody up and running again. I'm not going to say, oh, well, what's the warranty say? And what are these terms and conditions? And, that type of thing. And yeah, I don't want to just give money away, but in the end, it's like, well, what's going to make your customer happy? And are they going to buy more? Well, then do it. What's the right thing to do? Just do it.
I love that. I think, if you go back, a big thing for me is I always call them my 4 E's, which is actually the genesis of the name Quaid. But, it was, I would engage people, but then moving into what you talked about, it was education, right? How do we make money? What do we do with, proceeds? Why is it important for us to make money? It was, how do we service our customer? It's that education piece. But then you move into what I think is the real differentiator, which is that empowerment side of things, right? Which is what you're talking about of, yes, you have the power to send a wheel to somebody, a $10 part to somebody. Of course, go do that, right? It's the right thing to do. And it's going to solidify that relationship. And then, the fourth E is execution. And that's really just carrying it out and holding each other accountable to do the right thing.
And I think it also shows through in just, I mean, I would hope that my employees would back this up and say it. But I mean, I think that they understand that I respect and value them a ton. And part of my respect and value is staying the hell out of their way. Sometimes I think I'm at fault of probably not engaging with them as much as I should and not giving them the attention that probably they might want, because I want to get the hell out of the way and let them do their job. And I trust them, every one of them. And I feel the loyalty from each of them as well, that they would do whatever it took to take care of me. And they understand I'll do the same for them. So I think that just shows through as well and helps with that whole process and the whole picture, right?
I think that was another learning piece for me of, what is the role of a CEO or a business owner? And it's one of them, right? There's a bunch of them, but one of those roles is I need to clear obstacles for everybody else, right? That's it. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that you can do is just be the clearer of obstacles so they can get shit done.
Yep. In the corporate world, that's where I found myself as a leader in the corporate world, is I had to be the insulator from upper management, right? Is that my job for the people that worked for me was to interpret and insulate what was coming from above so that they didn't get, misled, or they didn't get railroaded or run over and feel like their life was worse than what it really was. And that's where I think a lot of times leaders in the corporate world end up just relaying messages from the top, and people are just like, well, this sucks. I don't know, but that's what we're doing now. I mean, like, instead of either pushing back or else just, taking the noise out of it and boiling it down for people to say, all right, here's the real impact for you, and here's the real intent of this, and we're going to live to the intent of what we need to do to make this right and keep up with the value that they're trying to push here. Doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to do everything to the T,
Yeah, that was a huge learning and something that I think is super important as a leader, as a CEO, is just remember that not only do you have that visionary role of where are we going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and what relationships are really valuable to us and all that kind of stuff, and keep building those, but it's literally to stay out of the way so that people can do their jobs and clear any hurdles that are there, whatever those are, and set them up for success. And if you can do that, to your point, I think people are going to be very dedicated and committed and help you do whatever you want because they see you doing all the right things to help them be successful.
Right.
Yeah. This has been fun. I never know where these things are going to go. I generally have an outline, and 3 minutes in, we scrap it and just have a good conversation. So this has been really cool. So as we start to wrap up, one of the things that I really enjoyed doing and have learned a lot and gotten a lot of insights, and some of the stuff I've stolen and all that is I like to get kind of inside your head a little bit in your heart and ask for your I believe statement. So if I said, Brad, what do you believe? What would you say?
I actually am going to steal from Ted Lasso. I believe and believe. When it gets tough, you got to believe. When you get to those points when you're not sure if you're going to make payroll or you're going to do it, you got to believe. And just know, are you doing the right thing? And just check back in. Hey, my plans are in place. Things are going the way I want them to. I'm making the decisions I want. You just got to believe that's going to come through. And you've got to be the cheerleader and the person that can put that message out for everybody else to also believe. And if you can do that, everything will come around, right? And even though you might be rolling in a pile of shit, you might have just driven off a cliff, you need to know that that's short term. And you're going to get through whatever that pile of shit is. And you're going to come out, you'll go through the car wash, you'll come out clean, and everything will be good again. Yeah, I think that's it. Believe and believe.
I like it. No, I like that a lot. I think, one of the things, a phrase that I've used my entire life, but I've been really vocal about it recently is always forward. And I think that's part of what you're saying too is, look, man, sometimes you're going to be in a pile of shit and okay, I'm in it and I want to get out. So we got to move forward. I mean, I can sit here and waller in it, but that seems like less fun, right? So I'd rather move forward and get out of it. So
as productive as it sounds. Yeah.
Right. So how do I get out of it? And if you have that focus, then your whole mindset shifts and it's like, what do I got to do to get out of this, to get to where I ultimately want to be? Which then goes back to, I think, one of the other roles of a business owner, CEO, entrepreneur is you've got to set that vision so that people know what always forward means. You set it out there and that's what they can drive to. They can see it, they can feel it, they believe in it. And so because of that, when falling off a cliff or being in a pile of shit happens, you can go towards this vision and figure out how to get there.
Yep.
This is good stuff. Really thankful you're part of the Quake community. Looking forward to hanging out more. It's been fun getting to know you. This has been a fun episode. So really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. You too, Mark.
Awesome. Well, we did it again, folks. We discovered yet another path to the CEO seat. As I've said before, one of the main goals of starting Igniting the CEO Within was to share how many different ways there are to reach that CEO seat, to have that entrepreneurial background, all that kind of stuff, so that everyone, regardless of where you are, can see that there is a CEO inside of you. And it might be in the business world, it might be in your family, it might be whatever, but there are paths for everyone to be their own CEO and entrepreneur and business owner and whatever. And I hope that these messages ring true and you can see yourself in some of these and whatever. So would love for you to subscribe to Igniting the CEO Within. Go back and listen to some of our prior episodes and look forward to some of the ones coming up. So until next time, I'm Mark McFatridge. I'll see you soon. Thank you for joining today's conversation. If our discussion has sparked your interest in our community of unapologetically authentic leaders, head on over to QuadeCircle.com, where you can learn more about Quade and take our exclusive CEO Mindset Assessment to help elevate your leadership journey. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and leave a review to help us continue delivering valuable insights and inspiring stories from top business leaders.